Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are returning to my favorite LJN tournament. Currently, we are on round 4, part 3. So, I was actually thinking that round 5 itself was going to be about 2 episodes long, but I think we might actually stretch that out to 3 episodes. So, I'll probably do like maybe 4 matchups in the first episode, maybe 3 matchups. Probably do like 3 matchups the first 2 episodes, and then 4 matchups in the third episode, or vice versa, 4, 3, 3, something like that. So it'll probably give us an extra episode in the 5th round. Now, does that mean that we stretch out the 6th round, the semifinals, to an extra video? Probably not. But if it does happen, I mean, like I said, it just gives us 1 extra episode, not a big deal. But yeah, so far the 4th round here hasn't been as difficult as I thought. First video went by pretty smoothly. Second video, there were some tough matchups. 3 Hogans in last video, all of them eliminated. I mean, that sucked, especially considering that 2 of them were Series 1 Hogans. But customs, I really wanted all of them to push forward. But I feel like, especially one of them going up against the Legion of Doom, I think it was really important to push those figures forward to the next round. So I think they were the right choices. And I know there are a lot of Legion of Doom fans out there, such as myself. So I think even getting them to the next round, at least one more round to get them as far into this competition as possible, it's the right call. And with the original Series 1 Hogan still in play, it doesn't hurt anything. So, but what did I say? I think there were 40 figures, if I'm not mistaken, in round 4. So 40 figures. I mean, it's not like there's a lot of leeway, a lot of stuff to play around with. You're only going to have 20 winners, man. And the chances that, all 3 Hogans, Series 1 Hogans, push forward to round 5 is highly unlikely. I mean, I'm kind of like looking at my 10, and I've kind of used that Andre figure I talked about, the blue and red one, as my replacement for Sid Vicious. That's been eliminated. So that basically gives you 10 openings, and based on how the figures lay out in a random drawing, there's no guarantee that they're gonna go up against others that you don't value as highly. So it's gonna be a tough round all in all. Round 4 onward is usually a very tough decision because you're at a point where you got your most elite figures at the beck and call. So, but I'm excited to continue on with this tournament because round 4, like I said, it really gets tough from this point moving forward. With today's video, we are going to start off with King Kong Bundy, the upgraded version. And he will square off Why do I keep drawing blanks? Oh, it's not a blank. It's, damn. Stud. Ah, oh, damn. If I go where I think I might go with that, that's gonna change the whole dynamic of this tournament, probably forever. Oh, I don't know if I got it in me to make that call. If I do make that call and I choose the way I might choose, that could possibly alter my opinion of all of these behind me when I talk about my favorite figures in order. Mr. T from Random Treasures takes on... What is this? What is this? Dragon Steamboat. Ah. The Stud Kane takes on... I'm done. This whole video is impossible. Man, guys, if you are looking for one of the most difficult videos ever, this might be it. Dusty Rhodes takes on Kane. Last matchup is Abdullah Butcher from Wrestling Writer. And he will take on Steve Austin, of course. Why not? Alrighty. I don't know, man. I don't know. I honestly have no idea about a single one of these matches. I'm going to sit here before I draw the figures because I want to redo. I want to redo on every single one of those battles because I don't know. You know what? The thing about filming a video, I can always press stop. I can always press stop and just refilm this whole thing and just redo it all over again. I don't want any of these battles. I don't want any of them. This sucks. God, I hate this. Alright, let's get these pulled. Alright, guys. Your first matchup, King Kong Bundy versus Big John Studd. Alright, so let's start off with the first fine points of this matchup. For as long as I've been talking about LJNs, and it's irrelevant about who I've been classifying or who wins the matchups in, like my last tournament, I put Kamala over Big John Studd in the semifinals. Got it. Hulk Hogan, Series 1 Original, has never made it out of the first round in any of my tournaments prior to this one. Got it. Yet, I always say Hulk Hogan Series 1 is my number 2 favorite LJN. Kamala has always made it to semifinals or finals in the tournaments. Yet he's always a number 4. How can that be? It makes no sense, right? And even though the last tournament Big John Studd lost to Kamala, I got Kamala at number 4. Yet I still classify Big John Studd as my number 1 favorite LJN figure. But Big John Studd, here's the thing with this particular figure. First, at my favorite LJN tournament, Big John Studd did square off against Kamala in the semifinals. Original on original, custom on custom, Big John Studd did defeat Kamala. He squared off against Bruce Brody in the finals. I was this close. Big John Studd technically, Big John Studd was my winner of that tournament. I was about to drop his name as my winner of that tournament, and at the very split second as I was about to drop his name, I decided to hold up Bruiser Brody and name him as my champion. So I probably will always classify Big John Studd as my all-time favorite LJN regardless. There are so many things that I enjoy about this particular figure, and one of the things that I always talk about, that I always gravitate about the Big John Studd figure, I always go back to Sid Vicious Galoob. Because Yes, this figure came out in 84. About 6 years later, in 1990, Galoob came out with their Sid Vicious, a figure I had from childhood. One of my all-time favorite figures, my all-time favorite figure, my all-time favorite, most played with figure. And they basically had roughly the exact same pose. So when I look at this figure, I always compare it to Sid Vicious. And it's a great pose, great look, a very enjoyable figure. Additionally, outside of figures, let's say, outside of maybe King Kong Bundy, I'm not sure about Kamala. I don't think I ever put Kamala on a scale, but I remember putting Bundy on a scale. I think Bundy was probably over 2 pounds. I think Big John Studd was like 1.8 pounds or something. But so I think Big John Studd technically is like the second heaviest LJN figure. So when I talk about width and girth and weight of a figure, I love that about the Big John Studd figure. That is so freaking awesome. I love that a lot. And when I started doing the LJN tournament the very first time, obviously never having LJNs, I wanted to get the playability and usage of the figures. So when I would use these figures and I would do my Royal Rumbles, I would enjoy this figure like so. Like he would be an enforcer, man. He would come in and just exact so much dominance in the ring. And when you see him in like the 89 Rumble, just in real life, he was a very deserving champion in that 89 Rumble. I don't think any of the other guys in that Rumble stood a darn chance. Plus, seeing him mess up Ted DiBiase and then, screw over Virgil at the end as well. I mean, that was hilarious. So, poor Virgil, man. Oh, God. Back to the figures. So, this figure, it just means a lot. And doing tournaments like this, I always love getting to a point where I draw the Big John Studd figure. It's irrelevant who he's going up against because I just really enjoy talking about the Big John Studd figure, holding him up, getting an opportunity to speak about the particular piece. The one downside, now he has a very, I don't want to say bland, but a very simple look. Now this is his look, right? When I think about the 90s and I think about Hasbro and I think about Jim Duggan and I think, okay, Jim Duggan with black boots and blue trunks. It's a very simple, bland look. So when I think about Hasbro and I look at his figure, I'm like, it's one of the worst Hasbros. Not because it's a bad figure. It's a freaking awesome figure. One of the best, most playful figures. But it's based on the Hasbro line, it's one of the worst because it's a very simple piece. He doesn't have a lot of color and detail to the figure. It's a very simple piece, all in all. So that's what hurts this figure. That's the only downside. And when you look at Hulk Hogan, yeah, the way that his arms are positioned, yes, he does have a much better play pose. And then when you factor in Kamala, which is a very similar fight pose to that of Hogan, except he's got that chop, so it kind of gives you that additional fighting attribute. That kind of helps Kamala. I think that's what actually put him over the top as well. So those flaws, if you call them that, is I guess in the end is what hurt Big John Studd and actually cost him the tournament the first time around and actually hurt his chances. I think in the end he already lost to Bruiser Brody the first tournament, so maybe that's why I kind of gravitated towards Kamala again, because I thought Kamala might have had a better opportunity of beating Bruiser Brody the second time around. But this is a perfect figure. It really is. King Kong Bundy, again, outside of Greg Valentine, King Kong Bundy, even with the bad play pose, was the most utilized figure. Even a bad figure can get the most use ever. And as the heaviest figure, good grip, enjoyable. I said that if King Kong Bundy had the right play pose, he could be the greatest LJN figure ever made. But he suffers with the same flaws that Big John Studd has. And that is that his look is so simple and plain. He doesn't have that eye-popping look that a lot of the other figures have. But this is King Kong Bundy. This is his look. I mean, you can't change it. You can't really add anything onto this figure. I mean, this is what he is. Now, the customizer that made this Bundy, what do? You take an SD Jones, one of the greatest playable action figures ever made, and you put him on a King Kong Bundy. Mind blown. So now you give him that freaking awesome choke slam pose. You give him a real awesome body slam pose, okay? I mean, this is freaking everything and more that you want. I literally had to make a video not just showing off the new custom figure that I got in, but that title. Is this the greatest LJN ever made? I wasn't just simply asking a question. I think it was more of a statement than a question. Because it really could be. This King Kong Bundy is in my 10 for a reason. And I think that kind of speaks volumes that this Bundy was in my 10 and I couldn't find a spot for Stud. Now, with that being said, does that necessarily mean that Stud loses this battle? 2 tournaments. Big John Studd has never lost a tournament prior to round 6. He's always been a semifinalist in round 6 or a finalist in round 7. This being round 4, does that necessarily mean it's been a bad run for him? This is 320 figures, guys. That is not a bad run for any of these figures. To make it to round 4 is incredible. And as I said in the last video, not only are we talking about sheer quantity of figures, but the overall quality of the figures is such greatly improved. A round 4 run is not bad at all. But even in round 3, we saw one of the Stud referees lose. It wasn't this version, but it was still a Stud. And any Big John Studd losing earlier than around 6 is a bad run. I think it's a shocking loss. Do I got the strength to put Big John Studd down earlier than a 6th round finish? I don't know if I got I don't think I have it in me to do so. I think this figure just means too much to me. Here's the thing. If I really do think that Bundy, this particular upgraded Bundy is a better figure, hypothetically, if I can't find the strength right now to put Bundy over Stud now, what's going to happen if it's the finals and I think Bundy is a better figure than, let's say Bruiser Brody again? I'm putting Brody on that pedestal because he's a 2-time champion, right? So let's say Brody's in the finals again, and it's Bundy and Brody. Or it's, I don't know, Dusty Rhodes and Brody. It's Steamboat and Brody. It's Colonel Mustafa and Brody. Boss Man and Brody, etc. Hogan and Brody, etc. If I think the other figure is better, if I can't find the strength to put Stud down now, how am I going to find the strength to put a 2-time champion down later? That's the toughest part about a tournament like this. You're so accustomed to seeing guys at certain stages. But that's a valid point. And so, for the first time ever, Big John Studd will not make it to round 6. I am putting upgraded Bundy through to round 5. This might have been one of the hardest choices I've ever made in this tournament, or any of these tournaments. My God. But Bundy freaking deserves it, man. I really thought Studd was going to do so much better in this tournament. I really thought that Studd was going to be back in the semifinals. I mean, based on his success in previous tournaments, I mean, why would you not think he was going to be back in the semifinals? I mean, history proves that he was going to be a semifinalist every time. But with the sheer quantity and with all the upgraded figures, I mean, I don't think it's a guarantee anymore. Oh, man. And here's the thing. All of these matchups, they're all like this. Every single one of these matchups, I'm going to be going back and forth because I have no freaking idea. Mr. T from Random Treasures taking on the Dragon Steamboat. It's so freaking weird that I talk about Ricky Steamboat being a potential winner of this tournament, because anytime we talk about Ricky Steamboat, LJN, most people are going to be thinking about this Ricky Steamboat right here, the Black Pants Ricky Steamboat, right? So they're not going to be thinking about this Ricky Steamboat. So if I say Ricky Steamboat's going to win this tournament, they're going to be thinking about that crappy version. They're going to be thinking about Black Pants Ricky Steamboat. They're going to be thinking, one of the worst LJN ever made Ricky Steamboat. I hate that darn thing. I know that there are so many people out there that are obsessed with that Ricky Steamboat, that love it to death. And I'm glad that people out there love that figure. But I'm not a fan. But like I said, the Ricky Steamboat, when you think Hasbro, this Hasbro version right here, this is my Ricky Steamboat. So when I think about the character, this is exactly who I think about. This is one of those figures I looked at and I'm like, this is why I had to redo this tournament. Because I don't think that Bruiser Brody is necessarily a guarantee to win this tournament again. And, we could get to the finals. Bruiser Brody could be in the finals again, and Bruiser Brody could be a 3-time champion. And to be honest, I'm kind of intrigued by the notion of putting that little name tag on there. Bruiser Brody, 3-time champion. But at the same time, if I do that Hall of Fame induction type of deal, where I kind of retire LJNs from competitions like this, where any previous LJN winner will not participate in future competitions, I'm still going to be having to wait an entire year before I make another tournament like this again. So what if this figure wins, next year? Okay, he's gone. Well, what about the following year? Let's say Colonel Mustafa wins, or Big Boss Man wins, Sid Vicious wins. Got it. But what about any other LJN figure that I acquire over the years? What if any of them wins? So, because I'm always going to be acquiring new LJNs. I mean, Random Treasures probably comes out with a good 6 to 10 new customs every year. So, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, what about all the other customizers that come out with new figures that I buy from? So I could potentially pick up anywhere between 20 to 50 new LJNs on a yearly basis. This right here was unexpected. I've talked about this before. I thought this was because the seller didn't give any dimensions, and when you looked at the photo, it looked very small. I actually thought this was a Galoob figure. It was a Tom Zank pose, so I thought it was a Galoob custom. So when I got it in, it was an LJN. I was actually disappointed because I actually was trying to get Galoob customs for my Galoob tournament. I wasn't planning an LJN tournament. I was actually hoping to do a Galoob tournament next. And but it's perfect. The only downside, I think the only thing that might keep this from winning this tournament, if I did have to give one, twofold. Number one, it's a resin figure, and two, he kind of has the same downside that a Series 4 Bret Hart Hasbro figure has. And he's kind of like looking straight up type of deal. So that kind of hurts a little bit. But not really. I mean, he is kind of looking right at you. It is such a good figure, though. But freaking Mr. T, a rubber figure, one of the most perfect poses ever, right? Incredible, playable wrestling action figure. Incredible, awesome, solid look. Incredible boots that I absolutely love. Love the digital or the multicolor faceted detail of the shoelaces. Like that a lot. One thing that could help or could sway my decision in this matchup, I think about that Butch Reed figure, which is basically the same figure as this, same pose and everything. What happens if Butch Reed and Mr. T squared off against each other? Which one of those figures would I choose? I don't know. I think I could be swayed a little bit to the left towards that Butch Reed figure. And if that's the case, if I knew that Butch Reed would beat Mr. T, does that necessarily mean that helps Ricky Steamboat have the edge here? But I know that I always gotta think ahead, right? I gotta think to future matchups. I gotta think to future rounds. Who has the best opportunity to succeed in future matchups? If Mr. T can't win, but then again, who's to say that he's going to square off against Butch Reed in the future? He may not be able to beat Butch Reed. Maybe Butch Reed squares off against Bossman and loses. But maybe Mr. T could beat Bossman. So, you know what? Luck of the draw. Such a great piece. I like the Mr. T a lot, but I can't. Like I said, man, I mean, these both of these figures are in my top 10. I know once we get to the semifinals, I'm only going to have 5 pieces in the semifinals. I can't have 10. So eventually, some of those pieces are going to start to drop off. But this is definitely one of those guys who I think has to make it as far as possible. The Dragon Steamboat is definitely going to go to round 5. Here is, again, continuing with the difficulty of these matchups. So, Big John Studd may have lost his matchup going up against Bundy, but all is not lost because we do have yet another sort of stud in Kane. Now, Kane does go up against another Random Treasures top figure in Dusty Rhodes. And I've said Dusty Rhodes is probably the number 2 figure just behind Zeus. Now, Zeus is one of those figures that I argue that if Bruiser Brody does lose this tournament, he's probably going to lose this tournament to about 1 of 5 figures. Hulk Hogan, maybe. Big Boss Man is a strong possibility. Kamala. If you're looking at customs, Zeus is one of those highly recommended figures that I think. The Steamboat figure we just looked at, I think Corporal or Colonel Mustafa is a possibility. Dusty Rhodes. Is Dusty Rhodes good enough to beat him? He doesn't have any of the like major upgrades that a lot of the other figures I mentioned have, but he is he is an elite figure. He didn't win the My Favorite Random Treasures tournament, which obviously went to Zeus. And, that is another, high priority that I place on Zeus. Zeus may not have won a My Favorite LJN tournament, but he's won a My Favorite Random Treasures tournament. So in his own right, he is a sort of tournament winner. So he does have that capability of winning this tournament. Based on matchups, I'm looking forward to seeing how something like that plays out. Dusty Rhodes, like I said, he is, in my opinion, the number 2 figure behind, right behind Zeus. And I'm kind of looking at the shelf because I might change things up. I might actually have Mr. T second behind Zeus, and Dusty Rhodes might be number 3. Yeah, I think I might actually value Mr. T higher than Dusty Rhodes now. I'm just looking at the Ram Treasures wall. I don't know. What do you guys think? Mr. T or Dusty Rhodes? Kind of a toss-up. I'm thinking Dusty. Actually, Mr. T might be second now. I think that's where I'm going with that. But still, no matter which way you put it, 2 or 3, he's still an elite figure. I could pretty much tell you the same exact things about this particular Kane figure that I talked about earlier when I described Big John Studd. Now, the things that I described with Studd, among his deficiencies, you don't have those deficiencies with this Kane. Because with this custom figure, a lot of the paint scheme and color and graphics and design is so well crafted and so well done. I don't know, man. At first glance, I thought maybe Dusty Rhodes had the upper hand. But I'm looking at the graphics, I'm looking at the design of the figure, and I'm thinking maybe this figure is done a little bit better than even I. I mean, I love the figure, and I've made arguments that this figure could be a tournament champion, and maybe I was blowing smoke. Logically, probably, when you look at all the other figures, here's the thing: if I keep calling him Corporal, if Colonel Mustafa is eliminated from this tournament based on a random drawing, that opens up a spot. If Big Boss Man is eliminated from the tournament based on a random drawing, that opens up a slot. If Ricky Steamboat here was eliminated, right? There are options. This is a random drawing tournament. So, logically, yeah. This is a good enough figure based on the way that the figures are drawn and how they square off against each other that it could technically win. But making it out of round 4 is going to be an uphill battle. Making it out of round 5 is almost going to be impossible. And I just don't see it right now. I don't know if he can necessarily defeat Dusty Rhodes. I am going to shock the world, though. I am going to go with the Kane Stud figure. I thought when I first drew the name, I really thought that Dusty Rhodes was going to be my winner, but I actually really like Kane a lot more. Now, house is burning down. I can only reach for one figure. Which one am I grabbing? Of course, I'm grabbing Dusty Rhodes. I mean, it's not even a question. You're looking at a $130 figure. I mean, this was probably like a $20, $30 figure. I mean, that's, in terms of value, of course, that's all day. But like I said, he's basically a Big John stud, right? So for all the things I talked about earlier, of the things I really like about the Big John stud figure, and with the upgraded colors and graphics, I like this figure a lot. Losing stud in that first matchup really hurt. I think salvaging this figure, it kind of alleviates some of that pain a little bit. And does he make it to the semifinals? I'm not sure. There are a ton of phenomenal figures. There are 5 elite, crazy, super elite figures that are going to end up in the semifinals. And I have an idea of those 5 figures that could be there, but they may not. You may not even see 3 of those super elite figures there, because how are they going to play out in the semifinal? How are they going to play out based on a random drawing? You may not even see 2 of those super elite figures, which means, hello, a figure like this could be in the semifinals. How awesome would that be? His first tournament, he could be a semifinalist. Last matchup. Abdullah Butcher from Wrestling Rider takes on Stone Cold Steve Austin. So, I kind of mentioned in my last video with Papa Shango, and I'm going to bring it up again here with Stone Cold Steve Austin. So, I got to stop kind of looking at these figures based on who they are molded after, or the figures that they're taken from, right? So, yeah. Customizers, they're going to take existing figures like Iron Sheik, and they're going to create different characters. Iron Sheik was a perfect character for Stone Cold, because he's a bald guy, right? And you kind of look at the face. They made this look like a real freaking Steve Austin. And the vest and the trunks and everything, the overall design is perfection. I enjoy the hell out of this figure. And the beer can inside the hand, right? The middle finger, and even the opening, because when you kind of have the middle finger, right, and you got that little opening right in between, they even got that in there. That is so freaking cool. Got the little built-on, or got the little added chain accessory. Papa Shango and the and Steve Austin, molded after Iron Sheik. I mean, a figure that is not even a figure I care about, but they could be among the 5 figures standing in the semifinals, and that would be insane. That is what a random drawing does to a tournament like this. Figures that you wouldn't even think would go that far could potentially be among your last 5 standing. But same issue. You gotta stop looking at Abdullah Butcher as a King Kong Bundy, and look at him for what he is as Abdullah Butcher. Now, unlike the Random Treasures figure, which I really enjoy, because unlike this one, he doesn't have those elf shoes. So Abdullah Butcher from Random Treasures is a huge upgrade in that respect. But this one is a much better figure around the forehead, where they've got the sliced head where he used to carve up himself before his matches and stuff. So that is awesome. I love the built-in fork, and adding the championship belt. Amazing. Both these figures deserve to be in round 5, and I don't want this matchup because I want them both in round 5. In the last video, I looked at Goldust, I looked at Steve Austin, I'm like, you know what, these are both relatively comparable figures, and I thought Goldust may have had a leg up based on history. I watched and I knew more of Goldust than I did of Steve Austin. Yeah, I saw Steve Austin as ringmaster in the mid 90s. In the late 90s, I didn't really care about wrestling at that point. And when the whole 316 thing started, I mean, I wasn't even watching wrestling anymore. So the whole Attitude Era and stuff like that, I was completely out of wrestling at that point. So none of that meant anything to me. So I mean, for a long time, when I think about like The Rock and Steve Austin, John Cena, I know those guys better probably as actors than I do as wrestlers. So, professionally, as athletes, as wrestlers, it just doesn't do anything for me. Abdullah the Butcher, I've never seen him wrestle or know anything about him. I've seen his, actually, I take that back. I've seen him wrestle on like YouTube, right? After I learned about him as a character, or Bruiser Brody, guys like that, right? And I got their figures. I wanted to learn more about them, so I started catching videos about them, and that's where you kind of catch their YouTube videos and see them wrestling like these little small gyms and stuff. But he seems like a real psychotic person. Like I said, the man has hepatitis, and he's over there cutting himself, bleeding himself, and bleeding on his opponents, infecting them. I'm like, you freaking nut. Good job. And today, I mean, how much money did you make in professional wrestling? And you're over here scamming your fans and stuff. I'm like, insane. But I really love this figure a lot. And to think, when I first saw this figure on Eric's page, I didn't care too much about it because all I saw was King Kong Bundy. And and it took me about a week or so before I actually pulled the trigger and bought it. And I didn't care for it. Like I had zero interest in the figure. It didn't really appeal to me, not really. Today, for the last couple of years, I mean, this has been one of my most favorite pieces. And I still love the weight and the look and of everything about this, the Beltons. So this is one of those figures I don't want to put down because I enjoy bringing him up and talking about him every time I do a tournament like this. And really the only time I get the opportunity to really bring him out and discuss him is when I do a tournament. So I know once I put him down and he's finished, next time I'm ever going to be able to talk about him again is probably a year or two later if I ever do my favorite LJN tournament again. So, is he a better figure than Steve Austin? Probably. Who do I have more history with? Steve Austin. I mean, do I really care about one character more than the other? Not necessarily. I know I enjoy the Abdullah Butcher figure more. Do I say that one figure has a better chance of winning more than the other? I would probably give it to Abdullah Butcher as a better option of winning, having a better chance to win. But there is just something so freaking special about this Steve Austin figure. I don't know what it is, but there's something very catchy about this, and I am very interested to see what it is. I'm just not ready to put Steve Austin down. I think the guys with the chic body, such as Shango and Steve Austin, I think they're going to do something amazing and surprise even me. I think they're going to surprise me. I think they're going to surprise the viewers who are watching these tournaments, and might shock the heck out of us and make it further than any of us expect. Does that mean a 6th round push? It's possible. Based on RAM drawings, that would be incredible. So right now, I am going to push Steve Austin into round 5. Guys, this, like I said, man, was one of the most painful videos to make. None of these matchups were easy. In fact, every single one of these guys deserved to be in the next round, and I said at the beginning of the video, I really should have stopped the video, refilmed, and re-chose the names, but man, that would have been cheating, so I didn't want to do that. But man, this was so hard. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. As I mentioned last video, please feel free to leave a comment. Continue to let me know who you guys want in the finals, or who you think is going to be in the finals, or semifinals, etc. Still looking forward to hearing from you guys, and keeping the conversation going, because we are getting closer and closer to the end. So it's been a freaking awesome tournament, man. I think once we got out of that first round, moving forward in round 2 onward, it's really kicked in my interest. So, all right, guys, that's it for now, man. It's been a long video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care, everybody.